Good morning, guys. Welcome to week 9 of our coronavirus online learning sessions here. If you were paying attention last week, I said that your project was going to be this week, but as I was putting that together for you guys, I realized we missed one of the elements that go into that project. I must have just happened in the shuffle from school to here. So we have one more element that we're going to talk about this week, and next week will be your project. This is called conflict. Specifically types of conflict. Conflict is just a problem a character has to overcome. And it kind of drives the story. Like, why does the story happen? Because the character was presented this problem and had to overcome it. That's the conflict. We're going to look at 4 different kinds. The first is man versus man. It is an external conflict because it takes place outside of the character himself or herself. It can be a man or a woman. Obviously, that man versus man is just the sexist nature of our old language. Man versus man is a struggle between two characters. It can be a physical struggle or a mental struggle. It's kind of the basic one you think of when you think of a struggle. We have Lex Luthor versus Superman, or Harry Potter versus Voldemort, or Rocky versus Apollo Creed, or any main character versus another main character. That's when one character fights against another character. Pretty straightforward, and that's the easiest one to identify usually. The next kind is man versus self. This one's internal. It doesn't have anybody involved in it really except for the main character. And it's a struggle between the character and his or her feelings, or conscience, or fears. It is when your character is trying to make a decision and trying to decide what to do. And they're thinking about it or asking advice for people trying to figure it out. So the examples here, I have a guy with an angel and a devil on his shoulder trying to decide which way to go, what to do. And another one is somebody that's kind of paralyzed by all these fears. So when somebody is just moody and can't decide as a character what to do, that's going to be man versus self. There's nobody that they are fighting against, just fighting against yourself. That's the only kind of internal conflict that we're going to look at. So if you see that term internal conflict, it's always talking about man versus self. The next type we're going to look at is man versus nature. And this is just what it says. It is an external conflict, and it is the character versus their environment versus Mother Nature. Mother Nature can be an animal, weather, insect, sickness, epidemics. We're going through a man versus nature crisis right now against COVID-19. So that is man versus nature if you're going against a sickness. Any pandemic movie, any movie about a plague sweeping the nation, any post-apocalyptic movie where the person's trying to survive, like Mad Max is a man versus nature conflict in a lot of ways. So I have a forest fire on here. Trapped on a desert island is another example of man versus nature. But also if you're looking at a zombie movie where you're fighting hordes of zombies that have gotten infected and are trying to kill you, that is also an example of man versus nature external conflict. The last kind is man versus society. And this is a struggle between a character and the laws or beliefs of a group. These are things like poverty, politics, social norms, expectations. Racism is a man versus society conflict. So if a lot of times if you are being targeted because of something you did, like Colin Kaepernick here, taking a knee in the NFL and getting basically kicked out of the NFL, that is man versus society. His society is the NFL, not the country, but he is fighting against that sort of bigotry in the society of his. Another example here is Martin Luther King marching against racism in the U.S. That is a conflict against, again, that racism in the United States. This one's a little harder to identify. If you get a speeding ticket and you have to pay that ticket, that is man versus society. So it is when your beliefs clash with the beliefs of a bigger group. If there, a lot of times, if there's a character being ostracized because they're not popular enough, that's man versus society at school. If a kid has to sit by himself at lunch in your book because no one will sit with him, that's man versus society as well. All right, moving on here. Let's take a look at our assignment for the week. You are writing me a paragraph about the conflict in your book. And here's what it looks like. I put an example of or definition of all of them up here for you at the beginning, so you can do it quickly. Your topic sentence, you're going to introduce the conflict that occurs in your book. So you're going to tell me the title of your book up here, and then tell me the conflict that happens in your book. And as you go down, you are going to write the important details from the conflict in your book. Tell me who, what, where, when, why, and how. At the end of this, I want you to cite your book by just putting the author's last name. So you're telling me a summary of your book and the conflict in there, and then you're going to cite it by putting your author's last name. Just parentheses, last name, parentheses. I got to do it at the end there. So you're telling me whether it is man versus man, man versus himself, man versus nature, man versus society, and you're explaining it in detail in there, okay? Your last sentence here is going to restate that topic sentence and kind of wrap everything up for you. If you take a look, I give you an example down here that I did from Harry Potter. So Harry Potter, Mr. Snow's man versus man. Harry gets Voldemort. Tells you up here. I'm not going to read this whole thing for you. Then I give you an example of that man versus man down here. Notice right here how I call out Rowling and cite her so that you know it's there. In my closing line here, I restate, this is the conflict man versus man, Harry versus Voldemort. Restate my topic sentence up there. Go ahead and just fill this out. You don't have to type it in a separate paragraph. You can just fill out the boxes. It's been going pretty well doing that. All right, and that's all I have for you for week 9. So good luck. We do not have a Zoom this week because I have a meeting that preempted it with the superintendent with a bunch of people. All right, so have a great day, guys. Stay healthy.